An open letter concerning the Chris Gethard Show. Dear reader, or watcher? I'm not exactly sure how to do this whole thing. I haven't done it before. Let's go with reader. It sounds very Jane Austen-y. I'm into that. Dear reader, I started watching the Chris Gethard Show during Christmas of last year, and it quickly became one of my favorite shows ever. Definitely my favorite late-night show ever. Unfortunately, TCGS is dead. Cancelled. Kaput. True TV just couldn't make it profitable. Cast and crew are all moving on to new things, and Gethard himself seems to have gotten too tired to fight for yet another new hosting service.
I'm almost 10 years in, pretty tired.
The only thing I can do now is share with you why I love the Chris Gethard Show. Wax nostalgic about something that was just here a few months back. And maybe, just maybe, someone will learn something out of this entertainment tragedy. Let's start with some background. Our story begins in the mid-2000s, at a then small alt comedy theater called the UCB. An emotional tumbleweed of a man, named Chris, is struggling with mental health, and he finds an unlikely island of stability in an improv comedy class. It's the perfect outlet for all the weird stuff you do when you're young and trying to figure out who you're gonna be. In 2009, Chris's UCB pursuits evolve into a simple stage act, The Chris Gethard Show. It was gruff, exciting, and do-it-yourself punk to the core. People liked it a lot, and the show had a solid 2-year run. But around 2011, things got dark. Chris's acting career started falling apart just as it began. His sitcom Big Lake failed, auditions were torture, and audiences just weren't showing up to the UCB like they used to. In order for the show to continue, things were going to have to change. And change they did. TCGS made the move to New York Public Access on June 22nd, 2011. By most conventional knowledge, this was a terrible idea.
What is the point of the show?
What you just asked is a truly fantastic question, and as the host of the show, my answer is, I have no idea.
It's gonna be a mess.
Transitioning from stage to screen is never an easy feat. You have to reshape the bits, learn how to play the camera, and the audience can turn you off at a moment's notice. So there was no indication the show would be watched if it was any good at all. But by far the most insane aspect about the public access move was the mere fact that Chris was transitioning away from Comedy Central to do the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Nobody does that! You don't get paid, you have to fund every aspect of production yourself, and you look desperate to Hollywood executives. At the time, Chris was basically ruining any chance of becoming a successful actor and draining his bank account in the process. So I reiterate, by most conventional knowledge, this was a terrible idea. If the Chris Gethard Show was going to work as a public access TV show, it'd have to be pure, insane magic. And it was.
1, 2, 3, 4!
Come take a ride. With the weirdest guy. No, well, it's Wednesday night.
It's Wednesday night.
And I'll eat it, eat go. The
Chris Gethard Show. Chris Gethard Show. Chris Gethard Show. Chris Gethard Show.
The Chris Gethard Show shot 166 episodes on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and then moved to cable to film another 46 episodes. As far as the content of the show goes, it's kind of hard to describe. Wikipedia calls it a phone-in comedy and variety talk show. Essentially, Chris and a panel of his friends would center each episode around a topic, and then the audience was free to call in and talk with Chris and the panel about whatever it was they were centering the show on. In between, there would be all sorts of variety-style bits. Characters and games and torture scenes. No 2 weeks looked alike, and it was really special because of that. I doubt it was easy to fight for, and I would be lying if I said there weren't some odd shifts as it jumped from channel to channel. But no matter what, TCGS always provided quality entertainment. It was something that affected me so personally that I bought the last 2 seasons on Vudu because I couldn't afford True TV and I had to keep watching. And now, dear reader, I find myself with a hole in my life. An awkward, gangly punk rock hole that I will never really fill again. But this is not a letter about my favorite TV show being canceled. This is a letter about everything TCGS did right. The following are some lessons that I have learned from watching the Chris Gethard Show. Some helpful tips and tricks for all you aspiring or current late-night hosts out there. And maybe you think it's an ill-informed move to be taking advice from a person with literally no credentials who's talking about a show that was canceled twice and had the lowest viewership on True TV. But if you actually watch the show and, keep an open mind, I think you'll think differently. Lesson number 1. Connect with your audience. Most late-night shows pretend like they interact with their audience. They read tweets and show off fan submissions like badges of honor, and then make a celebrity force out a semi-authentic anecdote before interrupting everything to sell you on a new movie. These programs wall off viewership and say that you should be deeply interested in the going-ons of Will Ferrell because he's simply more important than you. It's the McDonald's of television. Fuel, not food. Okay to like, but ultimately unsatisfying. Meanwhile, the Chris Gethard Show is your favorite taco joint, a place where every server knows your name, and your standard chicken fajita order melts you into a puddle of happiness. The people behind this late night show want to make a connection with you. No matter what season of TCGS you're watching, the viewer is the most important special guest every single week. You get on the merch, you drive the conversations, your voice is the one that actually matters. Celebrity means next to nothing. For a single crazy hour, the famous on the Chris Gethard Show get to be a person, a human, in addition to being a performer. You can tell everyone on the show actually wants to be on the show, and in a shocking turn, that atmosphere actually provides for better celebrity anecdotes.
The series finale of your show is on. Why are you doing this?
I think it's on right now.
I think that's true. Why are you doing
it's on
this?
right now. Chris, I don't know schedules and things like that. You texted me, I said yes.
Jake, you're the best you always have. I love it.
Lesson number 2. Do the unexpected. The cast and crew of TCGS allow for a ton of flexibility in what they do each week in order for these beautiful little unplanned moments to percolate into a show that's totally unique. I can't think of another late-night program brave enough to even attempt their hands-off approach. Tune into any major network, and you can immediately tell every moment has been meticulously thought out. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem with some planned, consistent pageantry, but when all you do is pre-planned bits, I think there's a problem. The formula is just so rigid in late night today. Talk about politics and TV, do a man on the street interview, maybe a skit, cut to commercial. In my opinion, television needs to shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars. It needs to respect its audience enough to try new things. And when you're still clinging to segments that have killed for the past 20 years, you've lost my interest. TCGS is always throwing caution to the wind and giving up partial control of their program so that it's actually different. Sometimes this makes for brilliant TV where the impossible is achieved, where P. Diddy shows up through the Diddy door, or Paul Scheer and Jason Mantzoukas take over all hosting responsibilities. Sometimes it means we watch a street rat sit in a corner for 3 minutes. But no matter what happens on the Chris Gethard Show, you smile and laugh and are totally on board for the ride, because that's unlike anything you've ever seen before, and it just feels right.
This is the least successful.
Hey, how do you dance, Ghost?
Asking the hard-hitting questions. How do you dance, Short Ghost?
Let's see you dance, Short Ghost. Back up a little bit and dance.
Oh, turning lemons into lemonade. Thank you for that.
Lesson number 3. Embrace your flaws and learn from them. On TCGS, the awkward goof-em-ups were displayed proudly. They wanted to hear out the oddballs and crazies, and they were always open about stumbles behind the scenes. It wasn't clean, it wasn't perfect, and that was totally okay. Celebrated, in fact. It was a show that took each misstep as an opportunity to improve, a chance to make something better. It was a show that said losing is okay as long as you lose well. You don't find that philosophy very often in life, and you find it even less in entertainment. It's endearing, inspirational, and something I think everyone should strive for. All too often, we become consumed with perfection. This insane idea that if we check all the right boxes at all the right times, we'll unlock the secrets of existence. But in reality, we have to deal with the goof-em-ups and oddballs and stumbles behind the scenes. Entertainment that reflects that aspect of life is something that I deeply crave. And I hope in the future that more and more late-night programs choose to focus less on the polish and more on how to bring their audience something real.
The Chris Gethard Show is not going to be a perfect show. It's not made by perfect people. It is not for perfect people. The target demographic for this show is goons. Goofs, freakazoids, blookies, oddballs, the sexually confused, dingbats, dinguses, the socially awkward, people with mild depression, dorks, asthmatics, underdogs, dweebs, people with severe depression, and jabronis.
The Chris Gethard Show has never been the most successful thing ever. Chris found comedy at an awkward time in his life. The show moved to public access because it wasn't popular enough at the UCB, and they just lost an almost decade-long battle to stay on the air. But they lost freaking well. They lost connecting people, they lost innovating, and they lost with open arms to all the weirdness people could throw at them. And for that, I'm truly grateful. Your friend, Isaac Last Name.
It could be a tough to lay in it.